Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Shaqir Hussyin here, and today I'm super excited to have this gentleman called Brad Sugars. I've just talked about his background before, but really some of his education and training materials has helped me grow a multi-eight-figure business before the age of 30. And it's such a pleasure to actually be speaking to you because I hold you up really high. And I was thinking to myself before the interview, gosh, why am I nervous? I've done these things before. Then I thought, oh shit, I'm interviewing the real Brad Sugars. And so I'm really excited. Some of your models, joining Action Coach when I was a younger man, 24 or 25, I think I was, when I had joined, and I had a seven-figure business, but I had grown it to 8 figures and then to over $30 million in sales in just the last few years. Training, teaching, educating, doing events and all sorts. So firstly, I do want to say thank you so much for all of the work that you've put out there.
Thanks, buddy. You can intro me anywhere, anytime. I think that's fantastic.
I appreciate it. So, Brad, just for the listeners that aren't familiar with your work, how did you get started in business? How many years ago was that? And let's just go from there.
Geez, it seems like forever ago the way you introduced me, that you met me when you were a kid. It's interesting. I started in business purely by accident. As a young kid, I wanted more money and didn't know how to get it. My parents weren't going to give me a ton of pocket money type thing. And so I just had to start doing things. And my newspaper route was sort of the first thing. And as soon as I was old enough to get a job, I got a job. As soon as I was, and I didn't realize that I was creating a business by having other people do the work, but that's sort of what it was. Real business started more in my late teens, early 20s. And then obviously nowadays, I've been through just over 60 different businesses. These days we have everything from commercial cleaning to property management, so all sorts of different things. Action Coach is obviously the one that I became most well known for because I'm the front man, the guy that gets up front, and as everyone says, oh, you're a motivational speaker. I go, no, I'm an educator. Education wins. It's interesting. People say in business, I can't motivate my staff. That's true, you can't. You can educate them though, and if they know what to do, why to do it, and how to do it, they'll do more of it. So people can't outperform their training is probably the simplest way to put it.
So Brad, right now, how does so let's just say, what is it, 30 years now, 40, how many years?
Action Coach is 26 years old, so this year. So, yeah, I've been in business about 30 years, I guess.
Wow, I'm 30 years old, so I just turned 30.
Well, there you go.
All right.
There you go.
So, okay, growing Action Coach. And, one of the things is cool because when I started this interview, I thought you would want me to, script out whatever. And you said, no, let's just have a conversation. And I thought, wow, this is even better. So really, this interview is going to be 100% selfish, all for me. And everyone else can benefit. That's the side byproduct of creating value. So growing something like Action Coach, 30 years ago, we're talking, it's an education company, business training, for entrepreneurs. Back then, who was around? You didn't have internet as much. What was going on here?
No, we didn't. I mean, we literally didn't have internet. I remember getting my first email address, a CompuServe address back then, which was a numbered email. But no, we still did fax mailings, and we did. I literally had in my office a massive mailing machine that would do mail merges of up to 8 pages, and we even had tape dubbing machines back then. So no, there wasn't buying training programs over the internet. It wasn't all that. And that's where, the business was very challenging in that you would be on the road giving introductory seminars all the time. And so there were the first few years of the business, I was 200 plus room nights in hotels a year, more than 200 flights a year. Those are the sorts of things you did. These days, and you see it with what you're doing, you see it with, a lot of people building brand by internet. And the thing is, your brand now, and this is the challenging difference. See, back in those days, I went deep into a market. So I would hit a city 4 or 5 times a year. So I'd be deep in that city, and everyone in that city would know who you are and what you do. These days, a lot of the education companies are working very thin. So they're working a global market, but no real penetration into any one particular market. And so that's where, they're challenged to do live events because you've got to do it. And that's where they're joining big group live events. So, I think that this business and the business of business coaching didn't exist when I started. The business of white-collar franchising had only just started, really H&R Block and maybe expense reduction analyst, that was it sort of thing. So, we had to invent an industry, but that's what you want to do. I remember as a young man reading 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing by Trout and Reese. And one of the immutable laws was if you can't be number 1 or 2 in a category, invent a new category. And so I looked around the consulting world and said, I can't be number 1 or 2 here, Bain, McKinsey, all of these big ones. But there's no one in the coaching business. And so we invented that category. These days, we are the Goliath of the industry and everyone wants to chase us. But that means we've got to stay ahead. It means we've got to be the innovators and we've got to be the ones that do all of the things that everyone else has to copy.
How do you go from, how old were you when you were starting Action Coach?
20s, early 20s.
Early 20s. How do you go and say to yourself, I'm going to create my own industry, I'm going to invent something? And then how do you come up with the idea, fund it? Like, what's the roadmap to it?
The great thing about being young is you have no idea what is or isn't possible. And so you just go for it. You just do it. I didn't realize I was inventing a new industry. I didn't realize that what we were doing was crazy at the time. But I think, if you look at the word entrepreneur or the word visionary, really there's someone who comes up with an idea and then just goes for it. That's really what it is an entrepreneur creates this thought or this vision or this idea and then goes and turns it into a profitable reality. And so, did I know? No, not really. But, I knew 3 things. Number 1, business owners needed help. I knew that there were business owners out there that had no idea what they were doing and that they were scared and they were lonely and they just lacked the knowledge. They were great at the profession of their business, but didn't really understand how to be a business owner. And business hasn't gotten any easier. People have just had to get better at business. I think that's sort of one of the keys to understanding. Second thing I knew was I was good at teaching. By pure accident, Robert Kiyosaki asked me to be on his stage 20 or 21, I think I was, and ended up on stage and went, wow, I enjoyed that. Hey, I'm pretty actually good at that too. So, and they pay me for it. Wow. That was sort of a big wow thing. And then the third thing I knew is that I knew business. And I knew well about how to grow business, even at a very young age. And I think that is because at 16, I was lucky enough to have met Jim Rohn. And, in fact, before I met Mr. Rohn, I won the local Rotary Youth Leadership Award in my area. And the Rotary Youth Leadership Award is named Ryla. And so Ryla, by winning that, I was sent away for a week-long training on how to be a leader and how to be successful at 16 years old. And if you've got a kid who's in their teens and you have a chance to send them away for a week to learn about success and leadership, 100% do that. 100%. You just got to do that. And in fact, even if you don't have the opportunity to do it, find an opportunity to do it.
There's so much wisdom in that, in those few sentences that you said. In terms of starting with Robert Kiyosaki, who was actually one of my earliest mentors as well. And I got because we do the free 2-hour live event model, and then we back end have the 3-day events, then masterminds. How were you filling rooms back then?
We were filling rooms with mail outs, newspaper advertising, piggyback mailing. So if someone was sending out invoices to their database, we'd put stuff in that. Yeah, just a lot of direct mail. A lot of direct mail. We did a ton of direct mail to convince people to come to the event. Sent them free tickets. Actually, even sent them tickets with complimentary stamped across it, valued at $79. Yeah, we did a ton of that back then.
What was the biggest mistake you made when you were growing action coach?
The biggest mistake I made was a very simple one. It was having a lack of financial controls, which meant at one point I found myself with a business partner who left for Fiji and didn't leave any money behind.
At what level were you at there?
Oh, millions a year already. So, yeah, but that's one of those lessons in life that didn't kill me, so came back from it and pushed through. But I still remember it vividly because I was back living with my parents, and because the money was gone, and I felt like a fraud at the time, because it was like, how am I to teach business when I just lost all the money and all that sort of stuff. And it was interesting chatting with my dad, who just said to me a very simple thing. He said, hang on, so you've made $1 million, yeah? I said, yeah. He said, so you know how to make $1 million? Well, yeah. Then do it again. I was like, oh, okay. You hear it today and you think, and this is, you go back to why is your first $1 million the hardest? Because you don't know what you're doing. Your first $1 million is tough when there's no clue of how to actually do it. But I think that a lot of people are unwilling to learn money and unwilling to learn business, and then it goes back to a simple statement of don't be upset at the results you didn't get for the work you didn't do. If you're not willing to do the work, don't be upset about not getting the results.
Brad, when you were at that stage where you felt like, oh, I've gone through this phase, but now how do I jump back? What was going through your head? Like, you're feeling like a fraud, then how can you go out and teach? What did you say to yourself? What's the internal self-talk?
I still have a very simple set of rituals, and that is every day get up and read my I am statements. Who am I becoming? And just because someone took the money didn't mean I'd changed who I was. It just meant I was stupid around financial controls. So I had to add an I am statement around being a good financial controller as well. And which the worst part of all of this is I trained as an accountant. It's like, how does an accountant mess up the money? I mean, it's, but I look back at it and there is not one business person that isn't going to go through challenging times, and be it personal financial challenges, business financial challenges, sales challenges, team member challenges. Every one of us is going to go through that. And to think you're any different to that is crazy. But to also think that any of those things should stop you is crazy. Just because something negative happened doesn't mean you stop. It just means, did you ever see that saying? Someone put a meme up years ago. Just because someone slashed one of your tires, does it mean you need to go and slash the other three yourself? It's some days it's going to be rainy, some days it's going to be sunny. Just keep going.
When you do have those bad days, because back then I used to, let's just say when I was starting my business, the first struggle was, how do you make sales? Then how do you make $1 million? Then how do you make $10 million? But then, I'm in a stage where I'm like, whoa, I need to, now the biggest lesson I've learned is, financial controls is one for sure. Because I studied finance at university, but I had no idea business cash, personal cash, investment cash. I read a book from Tim Ferriss about 4-Hour Workweek, and I thought, this guy is so cool. So I remember going into my bank, pulling $1 million cash, and then investing it in 1 year, and then labeling myself an angel investor. I was 24 or 25. 1 year later, I think I turned 26, and then I realized that 1 million did not produce one single ROI. So I removed angel investor from my,
the interesting thing is that being good at business and being good at investing are two different strategies, two entirely different, it's almost different personality sets. what I've found works best in most cases when I'm teaching wealth, like I wrote the book, The Wealth Coach, to show that there's different ways to get to wealth. But if you go back like Billionaire in Training, The Wealth Coach, Real Estate Coach, all those books are all about creating wealth. But what it comes down to is that in most cases, what I find is there's like a husband and wife team or two brothers or a mother and son or something like that, where one's really good at making and one's really good at managing money. And from a personality or even a profile of the person, you have to be clear on which one are you going to be focused in on, making or managing. For me, I've always been great at the making. I'm always good at making. I can buy companies and spin them and turn them around and sell them, and I can run great businesses and things. And when it came to the investing side of it, my personality and my patience level just weren't quite as high as they needed to be. Even though tons of real estate, it wasn't my forte to be in real estate. And to build it as a business, because this is the thing with wealth, that most people don't start their own wealth company. And if you actually want wealth, you actually need to start a company or a trust or something of that nature. Your accountant will tell you which, that is named, Shaqir's Wealth Company. Brad Sugar's or Sugar's Enterprises, it's our wealth company. And it must have its own business plan. So what is the business plan for my wealth company? Well, the business plan is to buy X amount of real estate per year at this rate and da-da-da. The business plan also includes buying shares at this many and this sort of thing, and it includes business investments in this way. And it's actually a business plan for the wealth company. And until you have that wealth company and until that wealth company is situated with its own bank accounts and, all of that stuff, you're not going to fund your future wealth. So, I think that, and, ultimately I'm a great business builder and I'm pretty good at wealth building, but I've learned to leverage those who are much better than me at that skill. There's a reason I bought a property management company, because it's easier to have a company that does it than try and do it myself. It's easier to have, those sorts of things. So, buddy, there's so many lessons around that fact. And that's, again, why I write the books, because people need the detail of them.
Yeah. And we'll share. Actually, let's talk about your new book. What is it called? Why did you write it? What are the things? Go on, show it again. Pulling
profits out of a hat.
I have ordered. It said, I think it's going to take a few days.
But yeah, it doesn't actually get released until April. We're on pre-order right now. Okay. And come April, it gets released to the market. Now, the reason I wrote that book, well, two reasons. Number one, I was sitting with someone at lunch and they're talking about business, and they just said, it just seems like magic when companies like IKEA and Apple make so much profit and grow so fast and they just keep growing. It just seems like magic. And I said, it's not magic. It's just a system. It's a format. It's a set of disciplines that they follow that you can follow too. And so, it became about the magic of building exponential growth businesses. And that was the second reason I wrote it, because a lot of people understand how to grow a business, but when it comes to exponential growth, year-on-year growth, and consistent and continual year-on-year growth, there's a big difference between that and grow, plateau type growth. So it really had to go down to what are the methodologies via which our clients around the world who are doing exponential growth, what are they doing different to the clients that aren't? Those that are building wealth through business, because ultimately you're building an asset with a business. Ultimately you're building something that should and could run without you. So that's really what we're looking for.
Well, I'm excited to read that book. Brad, what's when you wake up, what's like a daily schedule look like for you? What are some of the success habits, disciplines? Like you talked about the business disciplines. What are your personal disciplines that, no matter what happens, I'm getting it done?
Yeah, it's really interesting because that's changed a lot over the years. When I was in real growth mode, there were a lot of very strong disciplines. I'm a father of 5 and I have 5-year-old twins and a 10-month-old baby. So the actual disciplines in the morning now, I wake up with the kids and get them off to school. My wife always bathes them and puts them to bed, and I get up and get them dressed and get them to school. We have a deal that's the thing. I think that it's easy when you build wealth to lose touch with those sorts of things and pay a nanny to do it instead of actually doing that. Like, waking up my 10-month-old baby is far more important to me than waking up and checking emails. Giving her a bottle in the morning and giving her a hug, and then getting my twins dressed for school and making breakfast for them. That to me is sort of my ritual mornings these days. Then at 9, I kick off with work. Once the kids are in school, then it's time to do some work. I'm not going to work when the kids are home from school. I just don't. It's not my thing. I like to every day have a ritual of having lunch with my wife. There's sort of more of the rituals. Now, if I go back to when I was full in growth mode, every single day was exercise, the ritual of doing my I am statements and building up who I am as a person, visualization, verbalization every single morning, review goals every single morning, once a week review long-term goals. Every afternoon, write a plan of what I'm doing the next day and what needs to be not only done but achieved the next day, because they're two different things. What you have to do and what you have to achieve are different. What you have to achieve is far more important than what you have to do. I see, like, just in salespeople where they write make 20 phone calls. No, what you have to achieve is 10 connections with prospective buyers. There's a big difference between the two types of goals. And so all of those rituals were a part of it, as well as the health and mind health stuff. Mind health was a very big part of it and still is. I think mental health is, for an entrepreneur, getting your head and heart right is a very important aspect of your success. It's easy as an entrepreneur to forget about that stuff. And the formula that I've taught for many years, be times do equals have. Who you are times what you do determines what you have. And, just working harder, doing more, it doesn't increase the multiplication factor of the formula. You've got to grow as a person and do more or do better work. And that's where a lot of people say, I've got to work harder. No, you've got to work on more leveraged stuff. And, that's obviously a very important word in my teachings, the word leverage.
And in terms of going from a place where, you started to make money, but then when does that shift happen? I got to do it for a bigger purpose. It needs to be more than just the money.
Look, there's 3 levels of goal, and the first is a negative goal or an away goal. I want to get out of debt, or I want to lose weight, I want to be, I don't want to have a bank overdraft, all those sorts of things, right? Second level of goal is a positive goal, a toward goal. Instead of I don't want to be working 80 hours a week, I want to be working 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, or 5 hours a day, 4 days a week, or whatever the number is type thing. Instead of I don't want to be overweight, I want to be able to run 3 miles 5 times a day or 5 times a week. And then so you go negative and then positive goals. Most people, by the way, never get out of negative goal setting. They never get out of that. Their entire life is based on getting away from a negative, which, as we all know, means you end up with that negative as your life, because we attract what we focus on most. So flip that over to the positive and we start moving in that general direction. And then finally, the smallest number of people in the world move to level 3 goal setting, which is where it becomes about a legacy. So what is it that you're going to build that's a legacy? And that's where, if your financial goals are all about providing for yourself, you'll never actually build that much wealth, because, to provide for yourself, at $1 million to $2 million a year, that's a ton of money for an average person to spend on just life type thing. Once your goals become about building something for others, and that's where when I started Action Coach, I sat down with it and said, what am I going to do here? And I actually wrote the vision of world abundance through business re-education, and said to myself, my goal is to, one business at a time, create an abundant world. And if we can keep fixing one business at a time, it's like, when you started with us, how many team members did you have in your company back then?
Maybe 5 or 6.
And today?
We shot up to 55. And then now I'm hovering around 22, 25.
And so, but you think about how many people now have jobs and can provide for their family because of what you've learned.
Yeah.
And this is where, I as a business owner, feel very privileged with the fact that I get to give people jobs and I get to help people provide for their family. And I think that's a very important part of it. But ultimately, what is the legacy? A good mentor once said to me, you'll never be bigger than your competition. And if your competition is just to provide for yourself, then that's how big your business gets. If your competition or if your goal is to create an abundant world or to, create a million millionaires or something along those lines, then that's how big your business needs to be.
Brad, 30 years ago, when you were coming up with Action Coach, did you tell yourself, this is, okay, so that part, but did you write down, this is going to be $1 billion company, we're going to pass $1 billion in sales? How deep did you go in there?
No, I didn't at the start. At the start, definitely not. I was learning and educating myself around it. These days, when we start a business, every business that we start, the first thing we do is set a date. And the date is the date by which it'll work without us. And so on that date, by our definition of a business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. So by that definition, finished means it runs without you. And if it runs and grows without you, if you can take a 6-month vacation and not need to be there, then the business works without you. If you have to be there, it's not a business, it's a job. And so that's the distinct difference between the two. And so we set that date. And then once we know that date, we know, well, okay, what is our revenue got to be on that date? What is our profitability got to be on that date? Therefore, our capital value of that business will be X. And so, we look to that stuff these days where everything is about by what date, by what number, and then work backwards from there and say, okay, that's a 7-year plan. So over 7 years, we've got to get a business from there to there. So that means at year 6, it's got to be this. At year 5, it's got to be that. At year 4, 3, 2, 1, and therefore Q1, it's got to achieve X.
Okay, real good insight. In terms of advice for, my readers, my viewers, and even for myself, when you are growing at that speed, let's just say you're doubling each year, how do you handle the negativity, pessimism, challenges that are coming your way? Is it like you're just going to bulldoze it, or is it like you're going to...
But where are they coming from? Are they coming internally or are they coming externally?
Like both, actually. Let's talk about both, internally and externally.
Well, let's be clear on one thing. They only come externally if they're happening internally. So, it's like, I remember years ago getting on stage and you dread a question about X subject. You dread that because, I don't really know enough about that subject. And of course, you get asked the question. Finally, once you learn enough about that subject and you're good with it, no one ever asks the question anymore. And the same is true for any negativity coming your way. Where the negativity starts is internal. So if we are internally believing there is going to be something negative happening, then of course we're going to manifest that out there in the real world. And, the people are going to show up. And it's kind of like, I'm a tall, thin guy, and I'm 6'4" and 200 and something pounds, or just over 200 pounds. No one ever goes up and calls me fatso. It doesn't happen because it's just not in any reality. Okay. And so when you start attracting negativity, it's because you're worried about it. You're upset by it. You're concerned with it. It's something that you have a manifestation of in some level. So where it starts is, what are you doing to train your own head? What reading are you doing? What study are you doing? What self-development are you doing? How are you clearing any blockages in your energy flow? Are you doing acupuncture or massage, or are you doing Tai Chi to keep yourself in flow type stuff? There's a lot of things that we need to remember. And the faster you are growing, the faster you need to grow. And so if you're not getting physical work done every week, chiropractic, massage, acupuncture, whatever that is, if you're not taking meditation, the greatest ever meditation quote was, if you can't find 20 minutes a day to meditate, you need to meditate for an hour a day. And these are some of the things that we as business entrepreneurs need to be clear on, because here's the thing. What you do as you grow as a business person is energetically, you are now managing X number of people's energy. You're the handler of all of that. And so if you look at it as a presenter on stage, when you first start out and you're presenting to 10 people and you get off and you go, oh my God, I'm so dead. I'm just drained. And then you get good at it and you're managing your energy and you're stronger on stage and you know what you're doing better and you feel the intensity and you're managing your energy flow. And all of a sudden now you're doing 1,000 people and that's draining you. But if you did 500, you're easy, and that sort of thing. It's the same with staff. It's like you got 5 staff, it's easy to manage. You got 50 staff, holy heck, what am I doing? If you got 1,000 staff and for me with Action Coach, we literally have thousands of team members around the world. Well, it's my job to be the person that helps all of them become better. And so to do that, I've got to keep becoming better.
I love that. I also love the story that you share about taking your daughters out to the restaurant and then you're getting rejected for a table because they didn't know that you own the restaurant.
Yeah.
Can you share that story and the lesson behind it as well?
Yeah, look, I think that the main lesson I try and draw out of that one is that, first of all, success in business is that they don't know you own the joint. If they know you're the owner and they know you're the boss, it means you work there. And that means it's not running without you. That's the blunt point behind it. But the actual lesson that came out of that session for me is my daughter, she was probably 7 or 8 at the time, and she looked at me and she said, but Daddy, we're rich. Why haven't we got, we own this place. Shouldn't people know that? And I said to her, honey, first and foremost, Dad's rich, you're not. That's the first thing you got to get through your head. And that's really interesting, because I watch my teenage daughters, they're starting to drive, and I bought them cars and things, and we could have gone and bought them any car in the world, but we said, no, your budget is $35,000. You can buy a good car for $35,000. That's your budget. Go and find a nice car. My eldest bought a Prius, and Kenzie just got a little Honda CRV, and all their friends, their parents are buying them Porsches and Range Rovers and all that bullshit. And it's like, come on. If you read The Millionaire Next Door, one of the number one keys to being a millionaire is that you don't give your kids economic outpatient care. You don't spoil them with that sort of stuff. You can spoil kids, with presents and all that sort of stuff, but you've got to give them a decent set of values. And so, I credit my wife with most of that, buddy, because she's really strong with that sort of stuff. I still remember the other week, my kid, because I just went and bought myself a Lamborghini Urus. And my kid goes, but Dad, look, you just got this. And I go, yes, kid, that's right. I got it. I worked, I invested, I built, therefore I got it. Now, when you get there, you can do that too. But until you're 21, you're on Dad's dime. After that, you're an adult. Congratulations. That means you've got your own bills and you're going to have to pay them. So good luck with that.
I like that. One of the things that I get from your teachings, and it's always a constant reminder, I see like a mini Michael Gerber. You studied his work, right? It's like, yeah. Now I see you're doing more interviews. I just saw your interview with Grant Cardone recently as well. Where do you see the balance between, how do I ask this question? What's more important, the product or the marketing? Because, in this day and age where everyone's moving into this whole influencer model, you got to be out there, putting yourself out there, versus what's the balance between the product versus marketing?
First of all, back to Gerber, and then I'll answer that question. Me and Michael had a very distinct difference in philosophy. He believed everything in a business should be systems. I believe, and if you go back to my book, The Business Coach, we go through 6 tiers of growing a business, and systems is one of those 6 things, not the only one. So, yeah, Michael and I had some good debates on that stuff. The balance between marketing and product, if they're not both world-class, don't expect repeat business. And you see that a lot where the marketing is better than the product, and therefore they don't get repeat business because it's over-promise, under-deliver. I would firmly say the product should be better than what it's marketed to be. If you can under-promise and over-deliver, you're in a far better situation. The challenge comes when you promise A, B, C right through to Z, and all you deliver is A to D. And that is one of the biggest challenges I see in business today. Like if you think back to what you experienced with Action Coach, what you were promised is a coaching session and all of this, and what you ended up experiencing is joining a network of business owners. You got to be part of an influential group and learn and be mentored and hang out with others and then give back to others. And there's so much more to it than what we do. And that's why, for me, the influencer model of marketing is very strong. I'm doing a lot more. It's interesting. I'm doing about the same number of interviews, but I'm doing a lot more of them online today than I used to do. I used to do like actual radio and actual TV. And these days I'm doing more micro interviews. So, doing interviews with people who'll do a podcast to 1,000 people versus a TV interview to 1 million people. But of the 1 million people on the TV interview, only maybe 1,000 of them are my target audience. So, the marketing has shifted dramatically, and I'll explain that in a simple way. You used to be able to reach such massive numbers very easily because it was just TV or radio or newspaper or magazines, I guess. Now what we can do, marketing's become harder in that you need to be very well niched, but it's become easier in that you can be very well niched. And I've taught target marketing for many years in the fact that I would rather have a database of 200 who are perfectly aligned with what I'm doing than a database of 2 million where maybe 2,000 of them are perfectly aligned with what I'm doing and what I'm selling. And I think that's when you talk influencer marketing, what we're doing is really just building a tribe. Your database has gone from a CRM to Instagram. Your database is now LinkedIn. Your database is now Facebook type thing. That's where the marketplace is saying, yeah, I'm interested in that. I'll follow this, and that's sort of the way the world is working. But also the viral nature of marketing is very, very different today. Where back then everything had to be, you went direct to the consumer or direct to the business owner. These days, 10 of your customers can be more influential than you are yourself, and therefore make it. You just mentioned, you saw me when I did a thing with Grant. And so by doing that thing with Grant, all of a sudden, now I'm in front of thousands more people every week or every month. I remember doing a guest spot on, it was my neighbour down the street, Rick, at the Porn Stars, the TV show here in Vegas, the gold and silver porn, where everyone comes in and sells their stuff to them, and doing a guest spot coaching those guys. And that's been seen by more people on reruns around the world than you could imagine. It's crazy the number of people that, I'm sitting in Belgium and I just saw you on TV. It's like, oh, okay. So I think that, and the other thing I will say about marketing shift is that testimonials and ratings are probably the two most important parts of marketing today. I missed that early on in the internet part of it. Because early in the internet, you got to remember, everyone was just learning. What do we do? How do we actually do it? And I think to a degree, we are still all learning and understanding the internet to a degree. But in the early days, like, if you don't tell your story, then an internet troll can make that story up for you, and one person that's anonymous can make a negative statement and it can become the story. Whereas today, by doing this interview and by interviewing our clients and getting testimonial videos out there, the story becomes about them, not about what some internet troll says. And you're always going to have that one person that writes a negative review. I remember, seeing someone wrote a negative review on one of my seminars at one point in time, and I wrote back to them saying, thanks for letting us know. And by the way, you forgot to mention here that we gave you 100% refund and that you got all your money back because we didn't want to waste your time or money. You forget that we offer that guarantee to everybody. And you forgot to also mention that you don't actually own a business. You're looking to start a business, and the course was for business owners. And, you write back to them in that way and you say, so thanks for your feedback. Really appreciate it. And if we can ever help in the future, good luck and we'll see you then. And so everyone reads it and goes, oh, that 1-star review, yeah, that makes sense. There's always one.
Yeah.
But you've still got to have, and that's what, I'll ask you after this, make sure you get on Facebook and give me a 5-star or jump on LinkedIn and give me an endorsement type thing. But you've got to ask your customers for testimonials today, and you've got to ask them for ratings and stuff, because if you don't get the story out there, then the story becomes whatever anyone else wants it to be.
Yeah, that's all. You literally just took that out of my head. There's definitely some sort of magic or synergy happening here. But I remember being in a seminar, and one person wrote a bad review about me, about my seminars, and I was so flustered. I was like, I can't believe what someone gave me a negative. And one of the guys looked at me and said, "Man, you've been doing this for 8 years. This was a couple of years ago." He said, you've had well over 20,000 customers come through. You're bound to get a handful of people." And I guess that somehow, in some weird way, gave me some peace.
Yeah, look, I mean, you can't please all the people all the time. But going back to it, if you don't get the people who love what you're doing sharing their story, then that's your fault. Mm-hmm. That's your fault. You didn't ask them to share their story and tell the world how great they think you are. So I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Brad, I got 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. What's your focus now? What is it like? Are you trying to build a legacy? You want to get to?
Well, my focus right now is selling books. Getting this. Actually, the goal is to get it on New York Times bestseller. I've had Amazon bestsellers. I've had Wall Street Journal bestsellers. Had bestsellers in several countries all around the world. But I've never hit that one. So that's really the push right now.
Are you working with someone?
Oh, yeah, working with I'm a firm believer in what I do, that having experts handle the stuff that they're good at. Don't try and be good at everything. Pay the person who knows what they're doing, because they know what they're doing. Working with that team. Flip that over, I think that Action Coach really runs itself. It has for many, many years. I have good CEOs in all of our divisions around the world. But really, I've been finding partners and helping other people turn their intellectual property into either certified programs or licensed programs or franchised programs. That's really what I've been doing with other people who have great intellectual property, like Travis Bell, who's the bucket list guy, and helping him create. And now we have bucket list coaches all over the world doing bucket list coaching and helping people create their bucket list life plan. Because if you don't create a life plan, it doesn't matter what your business plan is. Your business plan's got to fit within the life plan. Rich Maloney at Engage and Grow, who had amazing intellectual property around employee engagement. And so taking that and developing that all over the world, now we literally have hundreds of employee engagement programs and coaches running all over the world. A gentleman who's just become very famous, he's actually on the New York Times bestseller list right now, Chris Voss, FBI's top hostage negotiator, helping Chris now create a whole program of negotiation training to go into companies to help people become black swan negotiators. And that's something you got to read in his book to understand why the whole swan analogy of negotiation. But working on all those things. And every now and again, I'll buy another company. I did promise my team this year no buying new companies, because last year we bought into 6 new companies. So the team was crazy busy last year. And I said, okay, this year I'll let you guys have a bit easier year and no new companies. But next year, watch out.
When you're, just to cover on that, when you're taking on these guys, Chris Voss, Rich Maloney, Travis Bell, what are you doing? Are you charging them a fee? Are you taking over their business? Are you buying into them?
I become partners with them in their business. So I become a partner in their business because, it's not about a consulting fee or anything. It's about, I want to build a business with you. I want to help you build something that's a great asset. You got to remember that the aim of business isn't cash flow or profitability. The aim of business is an asset. So if you don't know the capital value of your business as it stands, you miss the point. You've missed the whole point of business. The point is to build a saleable capital asset.
What do you look for? Like let's just say you and I are talking right now, and I've just told you, hey, last 9 years, I'm doing my business. It took me 3 years to make my first $1 million at 23, 24. Done over 30 million in sales. Horrible at 101 things. Good at maybe 1 to 3 things. How can you help me, Brad?
First of all, I'll get you back with your coach and make sure that your coach is kicking your backside on a week-to-week basis. Look, I think that when you are looking for something to do, you have to find a passion for it. You have to find someone who you want to work with, because business is that way. You've got to work with people, and you've got to have a meeting of the minds. And so, yeah, I watched that TV show, or Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, right?
Yeah.
And I call bullshit, because I've never ever seen a real investor who invests in an idea. A real business investor, and I don't know if it's played there, Marcus Lemoynis does a TV show called The Profit. It's on CNBC over here. I'm not sure if did you get that one? Do you remember? No. And the reason I love his show is because he actually goes in and meets the people behind the business and said, yes, I will invest in you people. See, a great investor invests in people. A shitty investor invests in an idea, because ideas are a dime a dozen. I can invest in the best idea in the world, but if the person running it has no capability to turn it into $100 million or $1 million company, that's a waste of time. I think the other thing that I'm doing that I really enjoy is once a year I'm hand selecting 10 business people to come to Vegas that are clients of Action Coach. I pick 10 of them and bring them to Vegas and spend a week teaching them how to create $1 billion enterprise in their business, and actually consulting with them and showing them, if I was to go to $1 billion in your business, this is the structure I'd use, this is the format I'd use, this is how I'd do it.
When is the next event in Vegas?
Well, that's what your coach will tell you about. So it's only people who are being coached by my coaches, because if they don't have a coach, it's too hard for me to teach it to them and then go back and get them to do it. They need to have someone on their team that is going to coach them in that. But it's 25 grand a person too, by the way. So it's not the sort of thing where we do it for free. It's like you got to be committed, because if I'm going to commit a week to, and it's the hardest work week of my entire year, because it's like pure intellectual, all day, every day, must come up with great things.
I like that. Brad, thank you. Listen, I want to say thank you so much. This has been awesome. I'm going to listen to this.
You'll get it. Make sure you put the link up for that.
I will. Don't worry about it. Guys, wherever you're watching this, on the blog, on YouTube, on Instagram, wherever you're watching this, there's going to be links below. Get the book. I've already ordered my copy. Brad, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much. And we will speak soon. I am very, very sure of it. I am very sure. All right.
Hey,
I appreciate it, man.
Good stuff, buddy.
Thank
Take
you very
care.
much. God bless you. All right.